What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Mark Show. We're back here for After the Last Dance. This is episode 10, the final episode, guys. This is it. The end of the series. We discussed the Chicago Bulls, the 1998 run. That's what Michael Jordan. So, it's bittersweet, but we got to discuss it and go from there. So, start with Jason. First word to describe this episode, my man.
Poetic. Only because it had been a long journey from 85 on, and it wasn't ended by another team rising to beat them. It was ended by their own hand, meaning internal management.
Yeah. What about you, Anthony?
I don't want to steal Jason's thunder from the last episode, but legacy was kind of the word that keeps popping up in my head, like empire, legacy, kind of because the run of dominance between 91 through 98 was, on par with any kind of legacy, any kind of empire that you've seen in a sports, way.
Yeah. I could see that. What about you, Chris?
Closure. That's for me. I mean, this was a story chapter for the Bulls, that run that they had, winning those 6 championships in 7 years. Jordan's legacy of being a Bulls player, getting drafted in the mid-'80s and fulfilling the promise that he made to that city in Chicago, that adopted city of Chicago for him, and giving it to him like 10 times over. I mean, this episode really showed how it all just kind of, they all accepted the end of the run, but it was just great for them to look back and see we accomplished all of this, despite knowing that we knew at the beginning of the year Jerry Krause wasn't going to bring Phil back. So I say closure be my best word for it.
Gotcha. And for me, Jason, I started episode 1 with Alpha. There's only one word for this episode, Omega. This is just the end. The end of a legacy, like Anthony said, the end of an amazing run, like Chris said. From what Jordan said himself, he told, when Jerry Krause told Phil at the beginning of the season, you go 82-0, it doesn't matter what you do, it's still over. The writing's on the wall. So that was the beginning of the end for their storybook, fairy tale, and it ended up with them top. So that's my word. The Omega is the end, because they pretty much all the main cast, all the main suspects went separate ways. Every single one of them. No one stayed behind. They all went somewhere different. It was over for them as being a part of the Bulls organization, pretty much.
Yeah. And the Bulls have been rebuilding ever since.
Sure in the hell has.
They've been the Cubs.
Yeah, the new Cubs.
The ongoing rebuild.
So I got a question for Chris. Would you trade that 84 draft pick now and not draft Akeem versus Jordan?
I would say no. And main reason being is, I don't know if Jordan would have had that same success in Houston, because you got to look at it. It was like the perfect storm for all that to come together, for Phil to become the coach, for them to get Pippen, to get Horace Grant, and to build that initial team that won those first 3 championships. And then for him to come back, still have Phil, still have Pip, minus Horace, but able to get Rodman in there and have Kerr step up for Paxson, who retired. It just would, I don't know if it would have been the same experience. So it's kind of hard to say, see Jordan won those 6 titles with the Bulls. Would I have taken Jordan back in that draft? Probably not. Because what if he would have got to the Rockets and we never won? We would have looked at Jordan entirely differently. Kind of like how we started to look at James Harden, right? James Harden, they kind of look at him like that. He's a scorer, but he can't lead you to the promised land. So I'm glad we got a game, and I'll say that. It would have been nice to have Jordan, but I think I'm happy where we're at.
I would have to agree with Chris, only to a certain extent, though. Hakeem was definitely one of the best of his era, one of probably either the second or third best in that era. You could flip-flop him with Karl Malone if you want. But in all reality, put some respect on that man's name. Talk about he's just a scorer. My man is all defensive, including Defensive Player of the Year, 1988.
He had to learn.
Learn what?
He had to learn.
Learn what? He learned that in college. Dean Smith.
He had to learn. He had to learn. He was defensive right out of college.
Okay.
Drafted in 84. He didn't play all defensive to 88. Still losing. Took 7 years to get it right. Calm down.
That's not his bad to get it right.
Damn, brother.
I mean, what? Led the league in scoring his rookie year as well as rookie of the year. Second year gets hurt after 3 games, comes back after missing, I think, 67 games. They make the playoffs. He drops 63 in a losing cause against, at that particular time, was considered the greatest team in NBA history, meaning the 86 Boston Celtics. Comes back in 87, wins the dunk contest. Comes back in 87, is the runner-up for MVP that year. Then comes back 88, is actually the MVP. He's the defensive player of the year. He's also the scoring champion, all-time, all-team defense. Man, what do you
slam
want?
dunk.
And slam dunk, back-to-back. Thank you very much. And All-Star Game MVP. Man, what you want, man?
Hey, Jason, he didn't win the 98 MVP. Call Malone.
And the other thing is, Jordan, that
did win the
second year,
MVP.
the second year you're talking about where he played, 2-3 games and they got hurt?
Yeah.
You know the crazy part of that season? He still made the All-Star game.
Yes.
He only played 3 games and was still voted on the All-Star team.
Yes.
Popularity vote there.
Yeah.
But, I mean, he showed out when he came back.
He did. With that minutes restriction that pissed him off.
Yeah.
Well, but when you're talking about 7 years, it took Hakeem 10 to get to the championship.
He got there, but he went against the greatest Celtics team of all time. Remember, him and Ralph Sampson went to the finals against that Celtics team, and that's what they lost. They lost that one.
Correct.
But Ralph Sampson got hurt. He got hurt in that series early, and then became all Hakeem. And Hakeem was doing work, but no one else. There was nothing else on that team. It was literally nothing else.
I forgot about the Twin Towers.
Yes.
Yeah.
I met Sampson once.
History. What if Ralph Sampson could stay healthy?
I met Sampson once in his lair, and he asked me where was I from. I said, right next to the beach, but. Sorry, that's a different Sampson. That's from Half Baked.
But so dealing with that Utah Jazz team. Okay, so because I think David Aldridge said that Utah Jazz team in 98 was better than the previous years. Do you think they was?
Yes.
Yeah.
They almost lost to a crippled Houston team. No, I do not think they were better.
All right. So I'm just going to preface by this, and everybody's up to can say what they want to say. In 97, that was the year that Malone wins MVP, I believe.
Yeah.
Okay. He wins MVP. They had a great year that year, and they ended up losing the Bulls in finals. The very next year, their team was a little bit stronger, meaning the younger players were playing a lot better. The role players were fulfilling their roles a lot better. Their system was running better. They had the best record in the league that year. Yep. I think they had beat the Bulls both games in a regular season that year.
Yep.
In retrospect, I do believe that the Jazz were the better team going in that series. If I recall, I would like to fact check myself in saying that the Jazz were actually favored in 98 by Las Vegas going into that series. I think that was the only time that we were the actual underdogs going into the final series.
You might be right on that because
I,
I
I,
remember Vegas
I
having.
trust I trust you on that one because it's possible because that was a damn good team though.
I think they had.
I'll tell you this: like watching that series and watching everything back through, the one thing that really surprised me, and I didn't think about it until I watched it, was Jordan hits that final shot on Russell, but there's like what 1, 2, 3 seconds left, something like that, and Utah has a shot to win it all, or to force it to Game 7. Who takes the shot?
John Stockton.
John Stockton.
How the hell does Malone not take the shot?
Okay, so let me go back on that. See, this is the part where I wish that there was more background in regards to Jordan the Bulls' adversaries. John Stockton is a big shot guy. Of course, he's primarily a facilitator. He passes the ball. He's a league leader. I mean, he's the all-time leader in assists, right? But this dude has hit big shots in the balance of the game several times, I remember, in his career, right?
Us Rockets fans know. We know. Us Rockets
fans know. Yeah, he hit the shot that he missed against the Bulls is literally on the opposite wing of where he hit the shot against the Rockets. So it's kind of like the same shot. So, I mean, in all reality, they were done.
I'm sorry, but Malone was the MVP the previous year. He's the guy who the offense went through. Like, I don't know. To me, like, that's a Pippen move where he should have been there taking that shot. Like, okay. Jordan would have had the ability to either take it or pass it. That didn't go through Malone at all. And to me, at that point, that's the difference between Jordan and Malone.
Okay. I mean, that's fair.
I would have liked to have some context on that from the Jazz perspective. Why wasn't Malone getting the ball? Were they using him as a decoy to try to set up that shot, similar to what they did against the Rockets? Because Stockton was open in that shot he hit against the Rockets. Because we doubled somebody. Barkley made a mistake on his assignment, and he went running after someone else, and that left Stockton alone to take that shot. But Stockton was actually getting guarded in the Bulls series when he took his final shot. So it was a very contested shot that he wanted to miss it. But where was Malone? I forgot where Malone was during that play. I don't know if he was in the block or in the post. I don't remember.
Okay, but I've never thought of that either, and I agree with you guys in regards to Malone. But what would Malone actually done? Okay, so you have anywhere, I think when Mike hits that shot, there's like 5, maybe 4 seconds left, 4 and some change. All right, so you inbound the ball. Malone is a person who scores off of pick and roll, pick and pop, put him on the block on the post. He's either going to hit you with a fadeaway jump shot or he's going to try to drop step you into a half hook or a baseline just bucket off the window, right? So in that situation, and he's going to get surrounded, he's going to get double teamed. It's going to be completely predicated on him making the right pass.
Dude,
I don't think that he's good on the dribble like that.
But you look at the Kukoc shot he shot whenever Pippen sat down, they only had 1.8 seconds and he hit that. 5 seconds is an eternity.
Yeah. He could have took at least one dribble, did his fadeaway jumper that he's been making this entire season, and got him the win, other than a contested desperation jumper from Stockton.
I'm trying to remember. The Kukoc situation was a little bit different, only because he had hit a shot earlier that year, not even like a month apart, where he hits that shot. They drew up the same play, and he hits the same shot twice. The first time he hit a bunch of rim, and then it went in, and the second time he nailed it. But if you want to go back to that, what would the narration been if Kukoc misses that shot and they lose that game?
They'd have blamed it on Pippen.
Huh? And everybody
would have blamed it on Pippen.
You still think they would blame it on Pippen?
No, of course. Or it would have made Pippen look a little bit more favorable. That's the way it is in sports. If the guy makes a shot, then the narrative is, well, Pippen quit on his team. But if Kukoc misses that shot, Pippen probably was right. He probably should have been out there guarding I'm going out there taking the shot in the first place. It's the same thing with Ron Harper not guarding Jordan, as said of Craig Elo. Ron Harper said, I should have been the one on him. Retrospect, maybe he should have been because Elo, he played damn good defense, but Jordan just made an incredible shot. So I don't know how it could have been different, but that's just the way it is in sports.
It's all about the matchups.
Yep.
Yeah. Pretty much.
No, but I agree with you. I mean, with 5 seconds, you should be able to find some way to have Malone touch the ball. But I mean, dude, John Stockton is equally as great. He may have not won MVP, but he's definitely there on the dream team. Definitely there, a all-star, and also, career leader and assist and so forth. So therefore, that dude was legit.
But if you win MVP the previous year, that should be your shot to take.
Yes. And if you watch anything on the Dream Team, you saw where John Stockton was walking around Barcelona and nobody knew who he was. So everybody knew who Karl Malone was, especially because right after that series, he was wrestling Dennis Rodman in wrestling.
That's a great perfect leeway because that's what I want to ask you guys about.
Yes.
Rodman and his, obviously Rodman has been a fascinating, subplot of this whole docuseries. Jason, as a Bulls fan, when you heard about Rodman going to WCW and wrestling with Hulk Hogan, what was going through your mind at that time?
I was shocked, but I was more shocked that he missed practice. He left that game, went to go, I can't remember where that WWF event was, but he left and did that. And then he just completely was like, man, I'm not going to practice. Fuck it. In the middle of the finals.
That's where it's like Allen Iverson, practice?
Yeah.
Come on, we talking about practice?
Yeah, exactly. And that's the weirdest thing about that whole thing is that it was like in the middle of the series. Now, I understand that we had just got done demolishing them. I think it was like 96-54 that game.
54 points.
Yeah, that was bad.
That was terrible. I don't remember that game.
The best was Jerry Sloan saying, "Is this the final score? Really?"
They got their ass kicked.
Yeah. And if Jerry Sloan is watching this show, hey, we hope you get better soon. We know you're ill, not feeling well. Want to send shout out to the great Jerry Sloan, who has his number retired in the United Center. Thank you, Jerry Sloan, number 4.
I know one thing because I'm a big wrestling fan, and I remember that episode of WCW Nitro where Rodman came out. I remember that, but I didn't remember that he missed practice. I didn't know he missed practice. I just remember him playing, and then on Monday night, he's at wrestling. He's like, oh, snap, like, Rodman? Well, all right. Like, I remember the whole situation because later on, that's when he came back a couple of times, and Karl Malone came out with DDP, and they had like a DDP, Karl Malone versus Hogan and Rodman, and I think it was like Bash at the Beach or something like that. Yeah, I remember that, but I don't. That was crazy.
Well, I didn't think that it was like I knew it was live, but I thought, man, they must have taped this or something because he's in the finals right now. I didn't put it together that he skipped practice till later on whenever I started watching SportsCenter and everything, and they're talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But at the time, I thought they must have like filmed it or something because sometimes they would film episodes for wrestling ahead of time.
Yeah, and see, but during that time, back when WWE was in WCW, WWE was already pre-taped. WCW was live.
Yeah,
that's why you always have That's why they have the situation where you would have one wrestler on one show, but then he'll be on the same show on another network or whatever. You're like, he was just on this show the same night. Like, what happened? And that's when they said, oh, it's taped. Like, no one knew that it was taped. Everyone thought it was live. But yeah, that was that. And then the whole practice, well, Phil was talking smack about Rodman, and George like, look at this, Rodzilla. That was funny. There, Rodzilla.
What'd you think about the fact that they had all the security at the front door and they sneak him out through the back?
Yeah, I
He's like
I
a
know
great
I know
Robin.
I know for
Chasing
me
Robin out of the center.
I know for me I died laughing because when they showed the one cat holding the camera and he couldn't go up the stairs because the cord was so long, he almost tripped holding the camera on his shoulder. I
Mhm.
died laughing. I thought it was hilarious. But you see him like he ran his butt off with that camera on his shoulder, almost tripped a couple of times, and he gets to the stairs. He's like, he
Dude,
couldn't breathe. It was hilarious.
if I could interview anybody from that championship season, it'd be those cameramen. Because think about it. Everybody was trying to get access to them at that time. And that set of cameramen or whoever was filming that documentary or filming that stuff, they had access that nobody could ever believe.
Mhm.
You know, that right there, to be part of that group, like I'm sure they have some stories that weren't filmed that would be really good to listen to.
Right. But yeah, but that was funny. That boy went through the laundry room. He went through it said laundry or something, and the door, and just view. I'm out. Just ran. That was hilarious.
Mhm.
That was good stuff.
I'm always amazed how camera crews find a way to know where somebody's at if they're hiding from in the arena. It's like if you have a press area that's dedicated for the press and you go on a back entrance, how the hell did they hear so quickly that you sneaking out the back door and have dudes with at least 50-pound cameras running after you like a Maury Povich show?
Well, so let me give you a little insight in that. Okay, so let me preface like this. Okay, so coming out of college, I worked for a company called Comcast Sports Network. Okay, so I was working for them for about a year and a half after I graduated college. And I was actually doing interview sessions for the Bulls, White Sox, and Bears. So meaning I was attending all the practices, and then sometimes after games, I would be one of those dudes that when you see like the camera, the athlete is actually talking, you see my arm like that. You can see like, my hand and the microphone.
Yep.
So I was there to get sound bites. So in that regards, in the old Chicago Stadium, they used to have the exit, which was 3.5. It was like the entrance 3.5. That's where all the players would kind of come in. When they built the United Center, which was like almost twice the size of the Chicago Stadium, they dedicated that one entrance for the players, but you would actually go underground. You go underneath the stadium. Okay. So with that said, you had a hallway where all of the media would kind of go in and wait, and then that's where they would have the press conferences after the game or even before the game and whatnot. But back then, especially in '98 at that time, that press room was so overflowed with people coming from just not even the United States, but people from all over the world. You know what I mean? To interview and to get this part of, it's the NBA Finals. So this dude, when he cuts out, he goes through a hallway to think, and the people who can't fit in this media room are the ones who actually see Dennis Rodman. They're on the outside of the media room because there's so many people there, more than usual, because it's, of course, the NBA Finals. And they're the ones that actually see him running down that hallway, and they go taking off after him. It's kind of crazy, huh?
I can tell you, too, just because I've taken a couple of pictures of a couple of people, you find every which way. Because, like, I've gotten lucky with some of my pictures because I've seen a door that goes to a back alley that I'm like, they're probably going to come through here versus through the front door.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where, like, when I got to meet Gary Vee, that's exactly what happened. They had a big old decoy up front. Everybody was up by the decoy. Around back, it was just me and then, like, two other people. Brandon actually was with me that day. And he's like, are you sure? I'm like, just trust me. He's going to come through. Sure enough, boom, pops out. We get to meet him, talk to him, everything. And we do all that and leave and walk, and there's still people at the decoy waiting for him to come out.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. That's pretty crazy.
So one thing you said was like all the people there. I think David Stern said it was like whenever 91, 92 started, NBA was in 80 countries. By the time Jordan retired, they were in 250 countries.
Yeah.
Can you imagine like the magnitude that what he did? And it's not just him; it's the whole NBA. But he was kind of the face of it.
Yeah.
There was no
I did.
there was no social media. There was nothing. Like it was just one man, just pretty much was. I guess he was bigger in the game because you have certain people that's bigger than a sports. Tiger Woods, Muhammad Ali, Jordan. You have certain players that's bigger than what the game will ever be, and he's on that list.
So I didn't understand the magnitude in terms of the world until I was working for it was called the Holiday Inn. It was the next to the Merchandise Mart in downtown Chicago. So I was working there as a doorman while I was working through college, and how many people would come from all over the place. And I would meet them, I would greet them, I'd talk to them, you know what I mean? I was a doorman, so I was handling bags. So I'd have a short little conversation between now and then the time they get to the front desk or to they get to their room. And I would ask them, hey, what are you doing here? What's going on? Do you have business, pleasure, whatever? And they were like, I couldn't tell you how many people said they just flew to Chicago extensively just to see the Bulls play. I'm here in the United States for 30 days. I decided to come to Chicago because I want to see Michael Jordan play. And then they were going to go continue doing whatever they were going to be doing while they're stateside for a month or so. You know what I mean? So I kind of understood the magnitude of it, that it reached outside of basketball. The funniest thing that I can also remember is being a kid. All right, so this is before any championships and whatever. And this is just a unique situation just because Chicago growing up, especially in the 80s, is the last true segregation decade, okay? Meaning if you named a racial group or if you named a ethnic group, I could tell you where they lived in the city, okay? Everybody had their own areas in the city. It wasn't a cultural melting pot yet, okay? So with that said, I remember me and about 3 other dudes were riding a bike. Okay, we're riding a bike. We're right on the division line, and I grew up on a corner called is Roosevelt and Austin. So it was Chicago, a town called Cicero. Cicero is where Al Capone is from and whatnot. Another town called Oak Park. Okay, that's where my family was living at the time on thing. And some kids were yelling at us across the day, yelling all types of like racial profanities towards us. You guys ain't shit, you this, you that. And the whole entire time, these dudes were being like extremely racist towards us. These kids. The dude had a cartoon shirt. You remember those old cartoon shirts of Jordan or any other players or whatever? Like they had really skinny bodies and big heads or whatever. And he's talking shit to us and yelling at us and whatnot, and he's got a Jordan shirt on. And that's when I knew Michael Jordan was colorless for the first time. I mean, do you understand what I'm trying to say? Is like, because I'm sitting there and we're rolling, we're just riding our bikes or whatever, and we're right at that division, that line. You know what I mean? We know not to cross that line because that's another neighborhood, and they got their stuff. They don't cross the line. They don't come in our neighborhood, right? That's how it was back then. And so they were just trying to start something with us and just start yelling all these like racial slurs and everything like that. And the dude's got a Jordan shirt on. And this is like, I don't know, I think this is like 87, 88. And that's when I knew that this dude was just kind of like he's breaking all barriers.
That's funny.
Well, think about one of the first episodes when he's in France and they're like treating him better than the Pope.
Mm-hmm. That's why I knew there was something different because I mean, in all reality, everybody sports was different back then. It's not different. It's different now because of the entertainment aspect of it. You know, they're part of the competition, but they're also part of the show. Back then, it was competition, and we hope to get a show out of that competition. Do you understand what I'm saying? So the marketing and the advertisement and everything else is just so much like has grown through the years. It's a different world out there right now in regards to sports and how people connect to sports.
You know,
And their relationship with sports.
One thing I took from how much the NBA grew during the dynasty of the Bulls is, you know, when the Pistons were winning, pretty much that stayed in Detroit.
Mm-hmm.
You know, fanfare to celebrate, that stayed in Detroit. But when the Bulls started winning championships, you started seeing people in other cities and states talking about them and celebrating and things like that. And that's when I, you know, started to realize how there can be one person or one team that's almost international. And then the Dream Team happened and how they destroyed everybody overseas. But, you know, you were seeing those games, like before the games even started, those players were in awe of those guys, especially Jordan. Jordan, he was the man. Everyone was trying to get a picture with him, trying to get an autograph from him. And that, you representing your country in the Olympics, you up here trying to get an autograph.
I was gonna say,
You know, you're not you ain't even thinking about your game. You trying to say, hey man, I'm trying to get a picture with Mike.
Mm-hmm.
We ain't gonna win, but at least I can get this picture.
that was the part that was amazing, is the fact that they're playing against them for the country. It's such a big honor to be in the Olympics in general and things like that. And you're right. Some of these players are sitting there going, next time out, I'm going to get a picture.
Yeah.
Like, into the game, I'm going to run over and get a picture.
We lose about 55, man, whatever, man. Hey, I'm trying to get a jersey or a shoe or something. I don't know about you guys.
Another weird thing, though, too, is like during that time, it was such a transition, you know, in regards to athleticism and before people started just jumping off the charts. So the one thing about Mike is that it was more of like you were going to, every time you sat down, you were going to see something you ain't never seen before. Like there was going to be one moment in the game that he's going to hit a shot or he's going to do something that you have never seen before. And it's kind of hard to do that nowadays because we've seen so much since then. You know what I mean? There's other players that have all these skills, like the way that Steph Curry has wowed us with his three-point shooting. And now you have several guys who can do what Steph Curry does, like Dame Lillard. You got Trae Young. You got a bunch of guys who can do what Steph Curry does. You go through Mike, you got different guys that hold some of his attributes. Like if you've noticed, Kobe is the closest, right, to Mike, but then you have Vince Carter with the dunking. You might have somebody else who has the mid-range, like a Richard Hamilton, like a Mitch Richmond and so forth, like that has his mid-range. You got somebody else who would have his post-up. And it's kind of awesome how you took one guy and he's morphed into the skills of a lot of different players that have come after him. To me, that's the most remarkable thing.
Well, and think about it. You're talking about the Jordan comparison. You know, Kobe obviously is the closest clone to him.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he was the one that from early on you could tell was mirrored after Jordan, even though he was a Magic fan.
Mm-hmm.
You know? And then you look at other ones like, remember Harold Miner?
Yeah.
Baby Jordan.
Baby Jordan.
He came out of USC, came out that 92 draft with Shaq and Mourning and Leitner and LaFonso Ellis and Robert Horry and all them.
Mm-hmm.
And he was one of the biggest things because he was Baby Jordan. Won the dunk contest, did all that. But, 4 years later after that, traded to Cleveland, he was out of the league?
Yeah.
You know, and you look at like Felipe Lopez and you look at Rashawn McCants. There's so many people that had that Jordan comparison, I guess you'd say.
Grant Hill.
Yeah.
Grant Hill's another one.
Yeah.
Grant Hill was supposed to be the next Jordan.
Mm-hmm. And
You know,
and he would have been, maybe not to the same extent, but I thought Grant Hill definitely had the skills to carry the league on his back for a couple of years.
He
Yeah.
just didn't have the
He
health.
just got, he got hurt.
Yeah, he didn't have the health. That was his thing. He definitely had the talent and skill, but he just
well,
got hurt.
that rookie
got
year
hurt.
of Grant,
Yeah.
that rookie year of Grant, he showed out, and that's where the comparisons really started. Like, okay, look, he did everything in Duke and and then he came in the league with Detroit and killing it. But to Jason's point, when he got hurt, that's where it went downhill.
Yeah.
Hell, at one point, Penny Hardaway was the same way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, you could do a whole podcast just on the people who were touted as a Jordan comparison.
Mm-hmm.
It became a curse. Being called the next Jordan became a curse because it's like that's a hard legacy to live up to, especially now, like you said, Jason, where everyone's doing similar things now. There's a bunch of dudes who can jump out the gym. There's a bunch of dudes who can shoot 30-foot three-pointers now. The only thing that's amazing to see now is when a guy takes a mid-range pull-up.
But that's the thing, though. And the funny thing about Mike's game that gets lost in translation is that how technically sound he was at everything. Like, the dude had nasty footwork. He could, if he wanted to rebound, he could rebound. If he at 87, 88, he was actually a point guard. They'd run the offense through him in terms of point guard duties. In '91, in regards to that '91 finals, I know everybody makes a big deal about, oh, he passed the ball to John Paxson in Game 5. Motherfuckers, he averaged 11 assists for the entire series. You know what I mean? Like, he didn't just start passing Game 5. But that's one of the narrative, huh?
He averaged 37 points in all of his playoff series.
Wow.
37 points, like the series against, I want to say it was Utah. He averaged one of the series. He averaged over 40 for a series.
Well, that was the Phoenix series.
That's what Chuck was like, man. I did all I could and I played great, but sometimes.
What the fuck you gonna do?
Nothing you can do about it.
So, also in terms of a documentary wrap up, Scottie Pippen was reportedly saying that he was unhappy with the documentary. He didn't publicly say this, but this is just other people bringing it out and talking about it and whatnot. What are your feelings? And in regards to Scottie, they were saying that he felt like he wasn't portrayed in a good light in the series. How do you guys feel about that?
Trying to put himself in that position.
He put himself in that position? Yeah, I agree with you.
I was going to say, like, everything that was put out about Scottie that we already knew, like the whole shot, the whole trade demand and the contract, everybody kind of knew all that already. The one area that we didn't know about was his background, and I thought they did a good job about that.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought they were fair to him in that sense, even to this final episode where they're talking about his back injury and, you know, how he was hurt, going back, coming back, going back, you know, and doing all that, being a decoy. I thought they portrayed him good. Like, he just kind of sucks. He was talked about, like when Jordan said there's no 6 championships without Pippen. Like, that's a huge compliment because when you look at it, there's not one person besides Phil that, when you talk about playing, that was there with Jordan the whole time.
Right.
So, I mean, I don't think they put him in bad light at all.
That back injury angle actually might have made Pippen look a little better because the contract and then being upset about taking the last shot and the migraine was kind of, we all kind of knew about it and it made him look a little bad. But I think the fact that he kept trying to come back out and play with that bad back, because as somebody like myself who experienced back problems, I know how debilitating that stuff is. So for him to just cut it out and make some plays and still come out on the court, I mean, that kind of said, oh, all right, kind of shed a little bit more positive light. So I thought that was good that they did that.
They did that, yeah. Agreed.
Now, speaking of Chris, what you talking about earlier about just what you kind of take from this episode. One thing that I totally forgot because I'm not used to it anymore is that back in the day, if the away team won like the championship, they celebrated on the floor of that home team. They didn't celebrate in the back. They do that now. Like that, before they did the trophy presentation on the floor in front of all the pretty much fans. That's not for the home team. I totally forgot about that.
Yeah,
And
that's true. That's why a lot of teams prefer to win the title on their home floor because it was
yes,
kind of awkward to celebrate in the visitors' floor.
yeah,
And
and
probably dangerous too.
But
You
they
never know
do it now.
sometimes.
Are you saying that they do it now, right?
yeah,
Nowadays.
they do
Yeah.
it now. I just forgot that they did that back in the day. That they celebrated on the floor of the home team, the away team. If you win, they celebrated the trophy presentation, the MVP, all in front of the fans. That's for the home team, not for the away team. But if you notice, if you watch in the background, they had probably a good amount of fans still there watching everything go down. Even though the Bulls won, you saw all the cheers. You heard all the cheers of him winning the MVP trophy and then present the Larry O'Brien trophy to the Bulls. They was cheering for that, even though that was the Jazz fans, which is crazy.
That's how I was in Miami in 2011.
What happened in 2006?
Well, it's funny you mentioned them celebrating. So, out of all the teams that the Bulls faced in the finals, which fans or which crowds do you think were the nastiest ones that the Bulls had to deal with through all those finals matchups?
Ooh, crowds. Man, dude, you just nailed it. Damn.
Oh,
There's a lot of good crowds. I mean, like, that transition, okay, so basically, like, in the 80s, 90s, and then you get into, like, the 2000s, there were still old stadiums. And to me, old stadiums are way better than new stadiums. Like, new stadiums have amenities. Man, dude, have you ever been to a Mavericks game now? I know you're a Mavericks fan. I went to a Mavericks game, and it is very nice. It is one of the most beautiful stadiums on the inside that you'll ever be. Everybody's in there. Everyone's nice, having a good time. They're watching athletics and all stuff like that. I'm talking about back in the day, it was like the working class citizen can afford to buy a ticket for him and his family, and everybody was going to the game to get rowdy. You know what I mean? They was there rowdy. Now it's all filled with corporate sponsorships and tickets and all that stuff like that. Half the people are there in a shirt and tie. You know what I mean? It's not like the same type of like field as it was back then. And
yeah, you're talking about Reunion Arena versus the American Airlines.
Yeah, exactly. So in my case, it's Old Chicago Stadium, which is like the mecca of everything for me. And it's an emotional thing for me compared to the United Center. It's like two different experiences. You know what I mean? But what I got to say is that the craziest fans back then were always Indiana had an awesome crowd fan base. Utah had an awesome crowd fan base. Now, thinking in your mind that those are two cities that really, in all reality, I mean, Indianapolis at that time didn't have the Colts. Colts weren't anything. They were like winning 1 or 2 games a season. So they only really had the Pacers, right? And Utah only has the Jazz. You had Portland that only had Portland. You had Seattle at the time that only really had Seattle. Seahawks they were at the bottom of the league. You know what I mean? So it was only like Seattle Supersonics basketball. So a lot of these different like basketball towns and so forth, the stadiums were smaller, they're compact, and they're loud as hell.
See?
And the funny thing is, out of that group, I forgot to mention, I can never forget the true Golden State Warriors. I'm talking about the Golden State Warriors that were only winning like 30 games a year. man, that crowd and that thing at that old stadium in Oakland was still loud. When it had like Run DMC and all that stuff like that, like even though their team was trash, that those fans were out there yelling.
See, when I think of crowds for the Bulls, right, like people the Bulls played against, it's never anybody from the finals. It's always everybody from the conference finals. Mm-hmm. Like the Pistons, the Knicks, the Pacers. Like when I think of crowds, those are the ones that were, to me, the most hostile or the most like invested, versus Portland. And the Laker crowd was a Laker. It was more of a mystique than it was like, kind of like how the Knicks were, where you had Spike Lee in there and they were going back and forth and talking to the crowd. And, to me, the conference finals were more crowd driven than it was the finals.
I would agree with that.
I would agree with that because, I mean, with the NBA finals, a lot of times you're going to get a lot of people who are there just for the NBA finals and not necessarily fully invested, like from preseason on fans.
I would say the reason why the conference finals mean more is you've seen that team more. Pacers and Bulls have faced each other numerous times during the season. Knicks and Bulls faced them numerous times. There's multiple games of historical notes there. So there's going to be legit hate. There's going to be guys going to that game, word claiming that like they hate Michael Jordan. They want to see him lose so bad. It would do everything for them to see him lose to their home team. And so they're going to be so vocal and so rowdy and so angry. But that's what I was saying in the finals, because I was like, me personally, the Utah Jazz series and the Indiana series, that was the only time I really saw the crowd and how vocal they were in this whole documentary. They didn't really,
the second championship, the second one.
Yeah.
Not the first, the last one.
Yeah, the last one, the Jazz fans were real loud and the Pacers fans were really, really loud. So it's like those were only two real crowds that I saw were really like, like, hey, we want this so bad compared to the other two, but they just cheering because, hey, we want to win. We just want to win. Right. But now, like, I want to destroy this team. I want my team to destroy this team. So,
well, another team like that's Cleveland too, because Cleveland had that hatred for Chicago because they had done them wrong so many times, and like to your point, like they played each other so much that when you saw, when Chicago came to town, you could see that Cleveland like marked it on their calendar, and all the fans came out with that hatred, and like they wanted nothing more than to beat the Bulls.
But those are the best games, though.
Yeah. What I miss the most out of those days is the arena sounds. Like every arena had their sound or they had their thing. Now it's such a copycat. Like I'm not trying to shit on like now. I'm just saying that it's such a copycat league and everybody's copying each other that every team had their distinct thing that they would do. Like, for example, you guys are everyone's here in Austin now, like you were closest to the Spurs. The Spurs had their go Spurs go, you know what I mean? Or like for the Chicago Bulls, we had our starting lineup. The way we did our starting lineup, we turn off all the lights. We had the thing going around. It was going crazy. And then, and now. And like, for example, Orlando Magic would have this beat. And it was like, doom, 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 doom. You know what I mean? Or what it was like, or the Indiana Pacers would have because of the Indianapolis 500, they would have the meow, meow, meow. Remember that sound?
Yeah.
At all? So every team had their own thing. I'm not talking about the Rockets and their rocket taking off in the middles from center court. I'm not talking about that. But everybody had their thing. And do you remember the Dallas Mavericks? Did they have anything?
They had Go Mavs Go.
Oh, they had Go Mavs Go too? Okay.
And they have the Mav Maniacs. Like, we've always had those.
Okay. Yeah.
We've always had the Red Rowdies. And I know I remember during the Keem years, playing in the Summit, I didn't go to a lot of the games in the Summit just because we couldn't afford it. But I know they had like just different, chants and cheers specifically for home games for the Rockets. And to your point, that's right. Those old stadiums, like I missed the Summit. I only went to two Rockets games in the Summit, and it was so much more of a different experience than it is at the Toyota Center, where it's a beautiful stadium, but most people are getting there late because they're getting off work. So the suit and ties are there. It's a corporate event. It feels like a corporate funded event. It doesn't feel like a sporting event until it's like a rivalry game. Then you get, the people, kids or something coming out to it. But normally it's just your suit and tie people. And, it's just not as fun, not as entertaining.
And I have to give I mean, I joke about the Rockets because I got two Rockets fans, on the panel as well. But I'll have to admit that when you have a conversation of the 8 years of first championship to last championship in the 2 years of baseball when Mike was playing and the Rockets won those 2 years, I'm going to let you know that the Bulls always had problems with going into Houston and winning, especially when they had what they called the Texas Triangle trip. They would come in and they would always have to play, in 3 games and 4 nights or 3 games and 5 nights against San Antonio and Dallas and Houston. And Houston, we used to go in there and get mopped. So I mean, it's a legitimate gripe to say that, man, that would have been an interesting situation. But I don't know. It's just things happen in the West and they didn't necessarily make it.
And honestly, you got.
I was just saying the West was just so cutthroat. It was so difficult just to make it out of there. I mean, look at all the teams that went to the finals. The only consistency was the Bulls coming out of the East, other than Orlando and the Knicks. Other than those 2 odd years, it was the Bulls. While in the West, it seemed like it was always a different team, except for the Jazz at the end of it. It was the Lakers. Then it was the Trailblazers. Then it was the Suns. Then Jordan retired, and the Rockets went 2 times a year. Then he comes back. Then it's Seattle. Then it's Utah. So it's always that what if in the back of everybody's mind. What kind of series that would have been? I wouldn't mind seeing it, but it was just tough. It wasn't the same kind of dominant level player that was on one team in the West that can consistently take them to the finals like Jordan did with the Bulls.
Yeah, because I still would like to see, because I remember when I know Chris do, when the big rumor was that if since the Rockets won the 2 championships, everybody wanted to see the Rockets play the Bulls. That's at some point everyone wanted to see them play each other, because the Bulls got got their rings, Rockets got their 2 rings. At some point, our best chance was what they showed that 96-97 season when John Stockton hit that shot. That was our best chance to go to the finals with the Bulls, because everyone wanted that. Because I think
Barkley that year. You had Barkley that year, right?
Yeah, Barkley. Because I think the Rockets finished number 1 in the West that year. We was number 1 in the West, and that's all we wanted.
We had home court advantage in that series against the Jazz.
Yeah.
They beat us in Game 6 on our home court.
Because honestly, I think if we would play the Bulls, we would have gone 7 games. I think we honestly would have gone 7 games.
Nah, they beat you in Game 6, right?
Yeah.
But you didn't have home court advantage.
Yeah, we were playing in Houston in Game 6.
I know. So, I mean, Game 7 would have been in Utah.
No, they still doing the 2-3-2?
No, they're doing 2-3-2.
Should have been 2-3-2 format then.
2-3-2 in the conference finals? No, they weren't. They never did 2-3-2 in the conference finals.
Oh,
no,
I don't remember that.
No, it's always 2-2-1-1-1. They were only doing the 2-3-2 in the finals, NBA finals, because of the world press and travel reasons and whatnot. So they were doing that for a number of years because of trying to get, people situated going back and forth, especially when you have 5, 6, and 7 going in different places. But no, I mean, the conference finals were always 2 at home, 2 away, back at home for game 5, on the road for game 6, and back at home for game 7 if you had a home court advantage.
Yeah, you might be right on that one.
No, yeah. So you probably had the second seed. But actually, Jason, kind of I wanted to get what you were going to say earlier is besides, I think the Rockets would have gone 7 games with the Bulls. The shortened the 50-game season. No, last episode, the 50-game season when the Spurs won.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Okay. Do you think what Jordan said, like, that's the one thing that he wished they had the chance, was go for the 7th ring? Do you think the Spurs had a chance to beat them in that in that season? If the Spurs,
I'm gonna say this. Do the Spurs beat the Bulls in a strike season where they only played 50 games in the regular season and then played the playoffs and the Bulls play the face thing? No, the Bulls are going to win that probably in 5 games. If it was an 82-game season and they met, I'm not too sure about that.
The short season would have been better for the Bulls because the Bulls have so many older players.
Exactly, and they would have gotten the rest that they needed.
It would have been great for them to have that short season to go for that 7th ring. It still would have been tough because you got a young Tim Duncan and David Robinson. So you would have had to contend with those 2 guys. Because that Spurs team, besides them 2, they still had Sean Elliott.
Avery Johnson. Was Robert Ory on that team yet?
Does somebody just say Avery Johnson?
Yes, Avery Johnson.
Hey, man, he was
My name is Avery Johnson.
He was the B.J. Armstrong of the team.
He wasn't no B.J. Armstrong. He was Avery Johnson of that team.
Was Ory on the team?
Hey, there's no way the Bulls lose to the Spurs that year.
Listen, what I'm saying is that I'm trying to give a preference. Like, if you're talking about a Bulls team that has run for 4 years straight, right, and probably about 5 – no, it wouldn't be 5 years. About 4 – let's say 4 years straight of getting to the conference finals or the NBA finals, and then you put them in that situation again, is very possible with a young Tim Duncan and the team that the Spurs have. At the very least, it's going to be close. Maybe the Bulls win out of inexperience. Maybe the Bulls win out of experience, But in a shortened season, I'm for sure the Bulls are going to win.
I think the only way the Bulls lose that is if they don't bring everybody back. If they bring Jordan and Phil Jackson, but they didn't bring Pippen or Rodman or something like that, that's how they lose. If they bring that team back, I don't see any team that year beating the Bulls again.
Even you're saying even during 80, you're saying in both scenarios, the Bulls win.
Yes. The only team I see beating them that year would have been the Pacers.
What about the Knicks? The Knicks actually made it to the finals that year.
Again, they're the Knicks. We talked about this last episode.
No. Stop that right now. That's a different Knicks team. That's the Knicks team that had Allen Houston, Latrell Sprewell. They had Kurt Thomas. It was a completely different Knicks team. They still had Patrick. They had Chris Childs. That's a completely different Knicks team than the middle of the 90s.
What happened?
They did lose.
They did the same thing. Complete different team. They still choked. They had a damn good squad. But it doesn't matter. Like that, the one series that they did on the previous episode with the Bulls and Knicks, that was the best Knicks team they probably ever had. And with Starks and Xavier McDaniel and Anthony Mason and Ewing and all of them, and they still did the same thing.
I hope Latrell Sprewell sees this video and comes to your house and chokes the shit out you.
I will tell him my name is not PJ.
Hey, but one thing though, I do give a big respect to Karl Malone. It was really big of him to go on the bus of the Bulls and give everyone handshakes. He gave it, especially he made sure the first person he went to was to Jordan in the back, and from that point on, that was big. You know, going to opposing team bus to say, "Hey, dude, hey, great job." That was awesome.
That's what you do. That's what you're supposed to do. When you walk in a certain pantheon, you're supposed to be respect. And there's the videos of Tim Duncan and LeBron when the Spurs swept LeBron the first time he had made it, and LeBron came in and showed some love. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
Yeah, Karl Malone got his respectable moment. That's the only thing respectful about him. In my mind.
I was gonna say he treated that bus like Kobe's wife.
Oh man! Wow! Well, I know one thing though. One thing I did not know was pretty interesting was the whole his face. That's funny.
Damn, dude. Hey, can you do me a favor? Hey, Daniel, can you cut that shit out where he just
like
no one cares about Karl Malone these days. The hell with
him. We ain't that big yet, so it'll be fine. Anyway, but like seriously, what was interesting though is when Phil got everyone back to kind of write their letters.
Oh yeah,
Last Dance. That was pretty interesting. And he said Jordan actually wrote a poem, and kind of that was interesting. That was pretty cool to hear.
I did say at the very beginning the word I like to use is poetic, right?
Yeah, I know. I get that.
I just want to bring you full circle, son.
I know, but it's just
I got Martin Scorsese's brain here, man.
Here we go. That's the liquor talking. Anyway, but just this to see that done to where they said they wrote a thing and they burnt the letters and that was it. That's how it was over. That was pretty interesting on that aspect of them to put in the coffee can, just kind of hey, this is over, guys. This is it. We did it.
So, I got a question for y'all. Out of all 10 episodes, which one was your favorite?
That's a good question.
That is a good question.
At the time it was 3, the Bad Boys. Then 5 at the time, because that's the one me, you, Anthony, did, was about the mixture from Kobe to the Dream Team. It was a mixture series video kind of deal that they talked about and stuff and everything. But I guess maybe 5, actually.
For me, it's going to be 1 and 8. I'm sorry, 1 and 10. 1 and 10. Number one episode is because I was so fucking geeked, just sitting in front of the TV, and I've been waiting for this documentary, and I was just sitting there like, yo, it's about to go down. And I was just kind of like, and it was just brought me to feelings that I had when I was a little kid. And then the final closure was 10 because completely my 2 sons who are basketball players now, they're both 10 and 8 years old, just came off of an undefeated season. They don't know necessarily what it's like to lose and to cry. I hope they learn soon. I hope somebody beats them by 40 so they can cry, so they know what pain feels like. But
wow, Jason,
you gotta. That's how you love, man. You gotta know what pain is, homie. You gotta know what pain is.
That is true.
You gotta know what pain is. They went through an undefeated. Dude, they went through 2 undefeated seasons now, and they haven't lost. They don't know what it's like to lose. They think it's gonna be like this for the rest of their lives. And they're like, trust me, they talk trash like nobody can talk trash. It's like 8 and 10-year-old talking trash. I'm like, boy, let me take you home to Chicago. It'll really change your mind. But anyways, I mean, for them to have the historical understanding of everything, for everything to come to a conclusion, for me to be telling them about my childhood and all these events that have happened, for me to tell them the folklore that is Michael Jordan now, and for them to now understand what the hell that I was talking about, and now they know now. I can see it in their eyes. They go to bed and they know. They go to bed with the same feeling that I went to bed with. It's like there is something magical happening, and I want to be a part of it.
Nice. So, actually, I have a question for you, Jason.
Mm.
Did you go to any of the parades or any of the championships in that park?
All 6 in Grant Park. Yes, I went to all 6 of them.
Nice.
All 6 of them. But I'm salty about that too, because they should have not been rallies. They should have been parades.
Oh.
Whack, whack, whack.
So hold on. I got Chris. What was your favorite episode?
Probably episode 3 and 4. I always was fascinated by the Dream Team, which they highlighted in episode 4. But
That was 5.
That was 5.
I thought it was, well, the 63-point game, the loss to the Celtics, and then the Dream Team. Those were my 2 favorite episodes. Mostly because that performance was, I thought, really made Jordan explode. I mean, he was already getting talked about, but after seeing what he did in that performance in the playoffs, it just exploded from there. And then to hear the praise from Bird saying, I felt like I was playing God on the court. You know, that's like, this is a man who's won multiple championships coming out and just saying, this guy was just murdering us, which he was. He was. It's unfortunate he didn't have no one else on the team who can help him out, but that's the early Bulls. They were terrible. But the Dream Team episode, you know, showing how Magic is, you know, still trying to be the alpha, goading Jordan on, but by the end of it, everybody knew, yeah, it's his world now. So
He's the alpha. That's what it's called, the alpha.
Like, I'm an alpha, but he is an alpha.
Double A. Now, for me, it was episode 5, which was the Dream Team one. It had a little bit of Kobe, but then it had the whole thing about the shoe, which, you know, how he wanted to go to Adidas and they ended up going to Nike because his mom said to go to the meeting. So for me, like, that episode 5 was my favorite of all the episodes. And then my second would be episode 3 because of the whole thing with the Pistons and all that. But then it was more about Rodman and Phil Jackson and their connection, and how, like, it showed Phil Jackson back in the day and, like, when he was with the Knicks, and, you know, how he grew up as a hippie and, like, his whole thing about how he won in Puerto Rico and the CBA and everywhere else. Like, to me, that story of that episode was the one that, like, really gravitated and really stuck to me, you know, besides the Dream Team one was the Dream Team episode. I hope they do a documentary, and if anybody ever watches this, please do a 10-part series documentary on the Dream Team, just like you did on The Last Dance, because to me that would be something that could rival this.
Yeah.
The and you forget, and I think you were saying it, but you might have just missed it, the Native American connection between the two.
Yeah,
because, like, the whole Phil Jackson kind of background and what he went through, and, you know, who he was, and even to the point where I didn't know this, but Phil interviewed for a job with the Bulls 2 years before he got the job as an assistant coach.
Mm-hmm.
And how, you know, they told him, like, you need to wear the right shirt or something about his dress code and things like that. Like, the same person that they're saying he needs to dress this way was arguably one of the greatest coaches of all time.
Right.
And before that, had won anywhere he was at.
Mm-hmm.
That's the most insane thing about Phil Jackson out of this. I didn't know he won every freaking place he went to. He won as a player. He won everywhere coaching. It's insane how much success that man has had before he even got to the Bulls.
Yep.
It's just that was just amazing.
And after.
Yeah, and after that.
Yeah, my wife came in. She was turning around. She was like, "He won 5 championships after he left the Bulls." I'm like,
yeah.
And that's the thing, is, like, that episode, those 2 episodes had so much story in it. Even with Rodman, you know, coming out of Oak Cliff in Dallas, and how he went from homeless to playing in, you know, Division 3 basketball. to being drafted, and then his whole thing with him and Chuck Daly and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Like, those 2 episodes, to me, had the most in the episode.
Yeah, it's more meat. There was a lot of meat, a lot to digest in those episodes.
Right. No, I would agree because, like I told you, I think from the very beginning, and I'm sorry to have to harp on this for the second time or maybe even third time, is that they were actually able to create the yin and the yang. First, it was Jerry Krause. Then it was Isaiah Thomas. Then it was the entire Piston team. Then it was maybe for the lack of interest, a little bit of Scottie Pippen conflict and whatnot in regards to the 1.8 seconds. That was a huge deal back then. They didn't necessarily make it a huge deal in the documentary, but it was a huge deal for him to sit out because you've never seen that before, where a player just completely takes himself out of the game in a crucial playoff game too. On top of that, it wasn't even a regular season.
Yeah.
Honestly, that could have been a death knell for him.
Do you know?
He could have got traded after that season.
As much as I love Scotty, and he gets all the accolades he deserves, and he deserves to be in top 50 of all time and all that good stuff like that. But that dude was shooting himself in the foot a lot. Like, a lot. Like, by the things that he said and the things that he would do. They never mentioned the gun incident that he had because it was off the court, and it's a Bulls documentary, you know what I mean? And Michael's running the show in regards to what or not. But, I mean, in all reality, Scotty, if you was pissed off at the way you were portrayed, they left that whole gun incident off the whole fucking thing.
Or his wife. Dude, him and his wife and everything that went on with them.
Mm-hmm.
There was a lot that they left off. That's where, the whole comment about him saying that he didn't like how he's portrayed, like, there's a lot. Even when he went to Portland and all that, like, they could have went a lot more depth on him as a person and really done him some injustice.
Right.
Right. Hey, before we got out of here, there's one thing I do want to mention, a little quick snippet. I know you probably caught it, but didn't think about it at the time. So at the beginning of episode 10, when they went to the Jazz practice, and you just see what the players are doing, trying to shoot long range threes.
Mm-hmm.
And the only person that hit one was Jordan. And the first thing I thought about was that if you took the players like Steph Curry today, they probably like, that ain't nothing. Like, you guys trying to shoot long range threes, and you could tell at the time Steve Kerr didn't have that range. None of the boys had that range. Jordan barely had that range. Mm-hmm. I thought it was pretty funny that, because today's players, their range is now half court. But back in the late 90s, nope, it's somewhere close to the 3-point line was their range. Anything farther close to half court, it ain't going to almost go in.
That just shows the evolution of basketball.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I don't even think Reggie Miller could hit 30-foot threes like that.
Right.
Yeah.
They were precision shooters. It was timing and precision and being in your spot. 30-foot three-pointers, that's not being in your spot. That's throwing it up and saying, hey, I've been practicing a few of these, and hopefully it goes in.
Well, that's like, what is one of the things I wrote down?
Oh, you actually wrote things down?
Yeah.
Thank you, Anthony.
Jordan, when he said it started with hope and ended with a legacy. Like,
yeah.
He hoped he could win when he made it.
Do what?
I said he hoped that he can win as a young boy. That I hope to do what the Celtics did. I hope to bring championships here. And now become one of the greatest teams of modern NBA era of all time.
Well, and one of the things that surprised me in that whole conversation when he kept talking about teams, I hope Chicago one day is looked at like, the Lakers, the Celtics, the 76ers. Not everybody, like, now nobody thinks of the 76ers that way.
Yeah.
No, I do not look at the 76ers as a great franchise or as one of the dominant franchises that everybody wants to be like and things like that. And it shows, like, to Jason's point, everybody else, the evolution, because, before that, 76ers were one of those teams that were dominant that everybody was looking at. And Chicago was a blimp on the radar. And now, even though it's been years since Chicago's done anything other than that little hiatus, or little time with Derrick Rose, like, everybody still looks at Chicago as one of the best franchises ever.
It's the history.
Yep.
Yeah.
Take a look at the eras now. Most of the eras, we've watched a lot of those Bulls games. Now we're older, we're showing our kids this documentary. And for the young NBA players who are the stars now, maybe their folks have showed them the highlights or showed them clips, or maybe they went to a few games. So seeing this just reinforcement of what they've already seen. So you look at that Bulls team, you still feel like, man, that's Jordan's Bulls, man. That history, that legacy there. Not a lot of those guys saw Dr. J back in the 70s. So you have no recollection of what that 76 team was in those late 70s when Dr. J was playing. By that time, he was getting older. You don't know nothing about those cats. The Celtics teams and the Lakers teams, they still have that history because they won so many titles. They got more combined titles than anybody. But that Bulls team, though, that was when all the media, the recording, all these guys that are playing now, they grew up with them. And then you had the Kobe factor in there too. So, yeah.
Dude, we sat there. So Magic retires in 92. During that time of 91 through 98, the Bulls win 6. And the Lakers turn around the next 10 years and win 5 more. Celtics win 1. So much for that.
You got to put the Pistons in there too, because they won 2 before the Bulls, and then they won 1 or 2 after.
1.
They almost won the second one, but they lost to the Spurs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a good 20-year gap between probably 4 or 5 teams that won it.
That's ridiculous, but yeah, I get it.
One of the other things I saw a stat was, like, how many people had a losing record against Jordan. Like, during his time playing, he played against 1,212 different people, and only 74 people had a winning record against him. And you know who the person who had the biggest winning percentage against Jordan was?
Isaiah Thomas?
Yep.
That was a guess.
He was number 1. Dirk was 3-0 against him, so I was happy about that. But, like, it was only 74 out of 1,212 different players, which is insane.
Yeah.
Oh, Dirk was the Wizards years. Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
That's why that trivia question on Patrick Ewing, I know Patrick was like, "Man, the hell with this series."
We're about done with this, yeah.
Right. If anybody should have been mad about the series, it's Patrick.
I think they interviewed him. Was like, "You watching it? Why the hell am I going to watch it? I lived it."
Yeah, yes. I heard that. He's on ESPN. He's like, I already been through this. I'm not going to go through this again. Like, oh yeah, that's true.
I agree with that mentality, man. Well, I want to see my ass getting kicked in a 10-part series.
He just didn't want to see that. He wanted to see that baseline dunk and that Scottie Pippen dunk. Damn.
All right, so
Well, he had multiple episodes because he had the North Carolina days, he had the early Bull days, he had the Jordan gone playing baseball days.
Yep.
I feel for Pat. I feel for him, man.
right. Oh well.
So, but the funny thing is that you notice that they don't necessarily talk about Jordan's. They didn't talk too much about Jordan's philanthropy work, which I thought that they should have highlighted because he's not one to really like broadcast that. He's from the old school where you do something, but you don't necessarily make the whole media and everybody else know about it. You know what I mean? So I would have liked to seen a little bit more in regards to that. I would have liked to seen, even though they would never do it, how much he's helped other people that were around that time. Like, you understand, like, Scotty was making money with Nike because of Mike, right? Scotty got his own shoes because of Mike. Scotty also got, Dennis had went from Converse to Nike, right? Right when he joined with the Bulls, or let's say the year after, the last 2 years he was with Nike. He had his own Nike brand. What's it called?
The Indestructs.
Indestructs. Thank you very much. Patrick eventually is not allowed to coach. Like, they would not hire him. He wanted to be a coach. They wouldn't allow him to coach. He eventually gets to the point to coach with Mike and the Hornets. Mike gets him. He's an assistant job with the Hornets, and then eventually he gets the job at Georgetown.
Yeah.
Right. There's a lot of different things that, in terms of these dudes, they came up with him, but they were actually able to make some money as well through the connection. That would have been interesting to find out, but because it's a competitive type of sport, competitive type of game, they're not going to let you know about those little insights.
Well, I was surprised too, especially with everything going on, like with the Kobe passing, that they didn't go into detail on that.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, like what they're going to do when they showed Kobe, but they didn't.
Right. I thought that was going to be almost a whole episode because of their connection, and like they could have really intertwined, like Kobe coming up and Jordan, and then their connection at that All-Star game, and then afterwards throughout his years and things like that, maybe mentoring him and just doing something like that, you know, when you look at the 10-part episode, they left a lot on the table that
lot.
You know, they could definitely do another 10-part and everybody would be just as intrigued.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting though. It's really interesting. The guy they chose to do it in terms of directing it, I can't remember his name right now.
Jason Ayer.
Yeah. I thought he did a good job, but I think that he could have done a great job.
It's like he tried to find highlights that we already had access to and put it together documentary. A lot of it was highlights we've seen already, we've known about. You know, some of the background stuff we saw was very good and entertaining, but most of the rest of the stuff we've already seen and knew. So
what
stuff.
And that's the one thing that I like. I'd never seen a lot of the practice stuff from the Dream Team. And, you know, I've always heard stories about Jordan doing some dunk during the Dream Team practices that everybody was like, holy crap, how did he do that?
Mm-hmm.
And now it makes me believe they have that on film. Like, because they showed film of them practicing in those games. And, you know, you always hear how those were the most competitive and probably best games ever. So that's where I kind of hold out hope that they do a documentary on the Dream Team at one point and actually pull that out, because they're going to wait this long for this Jordan doc. Hopefully by 2022, they're going to do a doc on the Dream Team from 92.
You know, it's funny you mention that, because they talked a little bit about the Space Jam game when Mike was trying to get himself ready for the full season coming back. And how Reggie was saying how competitive, how great those games were. And they kind of showed a little bit, just a little taste. But it's like, well, we'll go more in depth. It looks like you guys got more video.
A lot more video.
Give me some more.
What they should have done is like, I don't watch that NFL season where they grab a team from the preseason and they film them.
Mm-hmm.
What's it called, Gridiron or something?
Hard Knocks.
Hard Knocks. Okay. Yeah. They could have just done like a whole season and just dedicated to that, and then they would have had something where they can do it with other things as well. You know, maybe that season would have just been footage of The Last Dance. You know what I mean? And then the next thing you switch gears to something else. There's so many other stories to be told.
Yeah, a lot of stories.
They mentioned Luke Longley. What about Luke?
I would have liked to have seen more of that too, like all the trades that were made.
For the role players.
Trading Stacey King, trading Charles Oakley.
You
Do
want
what?
you want us to spend 5 minutes on trading Stacey King?
I'm just talking about all the different trades they did to put people in.
Yeah,
Like,
talk
you
about the
know,
moves that were
let,
made to build that
letting
team.
You want to
Bill
talk about
Cartwright go.
Trent? You want to talk about Trent Tucker and Daryl Walker and Ed Neely and Will
What
Purdue?
was the guy? What was the guy before him? The dude that was there before Jordan.
Reggie Theus.
Theus, yes.
Reggie Theus? Yeah, boy, that boy had a mean curl.
How he talked all crap about how they wouldn't do anything with that rookie, and then Jordan torched him whenever he played them.
All right. Hey, what was that? Mr. Hooper? No, it wasn't Mr. Hooper, right? Reggie Theus was on a Saturday morning show with kids.
Yeah,
Hanging
hanging
with
with
Mr.
Mr. Coop.
Was it Hanger Mr. Cooper? Was it
Yeah,
that one?
Yeah.
Mr. Cooper. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, Reggie Theus.
But I'm saying, like even like the Luke Longley one, or getting Steve Kerr, like how they maneuvered all the trades throughout the time Jordan was there. You know, even the trade for Pippen, because Pippen was drafted by the Supersonics.
Yeah.
Supersonics.
How did that trade start? The Rodman trade from the Spurs. I know the Spurs are basically giving them up, but
Right.
you know, how did the Bulls become of interest to them?
Nobody wanted that dude, man. Remember
Well,
when when he took off his shoes on the end of the bench? That was the last straw. San Antonio didn't want no problems with him. Popovich was like, man, fuck this.
Yeah, but Popovich at that time was the GM. He wasn't even the coach.
Yeah. Fuck
It was
this.
Bob Hill.
Yeah, Bob Hill. But man, come on, man. Like seriously, who else would you have really like gone through? I guess they highlighted a little bit of BJ.
They did what they did at the end, where they showed Phil going to the Lakers, Mike retiring, Pip getting traded to. Well, they just said he got traded.
Yeah.
Well, Steve Kerr traded. Rodman released. They could have did that for all the trades and moves that Krause did just to build that team, that first championship team. Like, show the moves that were made. How did this team come together besides what you did to get Pippen? You know, because they didn't really talk about Horace Grant that much.
Yeah, they didn't talk about that trade. They didn't talk about getting Ron Harper. They didn't there was some good moves there that weren't world changing, but they were still very, very much needed for those teams to keep going.
Although now that I say it, I think I know why they probably didn't do it, because it would have gave Jerry Krause more credit.
Listen,
it's probably true.
Listen. I would
look at Jason.
I would love to give Jerry Krause some credit, but no, I wouldn't. Because, listen, come on, man. The Bulls had a bunch of fucking role players, okay? Compared to today, where these guys can do different things, these dudes can do one or two things, and that was it. Like, come on, man. Steve Kerr, for real? Like, I understand he's part of the narrative because he hit the big shot, one big shot. And he won actually with San Antonio, so that kind of helps. But who was Steve Kerr before that? Steve Kerr was a journeyman, okay? Couldn't find his way in the NBA. He found a niche. He said he studied John Paxson. He said, man, if I'm putting there and John Paxson and John Paxson retires or whatever, then I would find a nice niche role. That would be perfect for me. Dennis Rodman at the time, was literally working himself his way out of the league. Found a new life by playing with Mike. And I don't know what other team that Dennis would have went on that he would have been a success. But at that point in time, he was already done and over with basketball. The joy of playing basketball was gone, all right, when he was with San Antonio, okay? Luke Longley, who's Luke Longley?
Dude, but everybody you just said replaced exactly how they had it before. Paxson to Kerr, Grant to Rodman, Cartwright to Longley. Like, you look at it, and the moves were really, really smart when you look at it. You look at,
Luke Longley was about 3/4 as big as Shaq. He was 3/4 of Shaq. And, hey, are we still recording?
Yeah.
Dude play like a pussy.
Yeah. I mean, come on. You know who had a lot of time on this documentary that you would not think would have time on this documentary? You're making fun of Luke Longley, but Bill Whittington had all the damn time on this thing. So
Nah. See, that's the problem. Bill Whittington was about that life.
Oh, here we go.
Bill Whittington was about that life. That dude, I go into the trenches with. Bill Whittington, that dude, like, listen, all I'm saying is that you play to your capabilities. You play to your potential. Bill Whittington always played. He wasn't the player that that at that particular time that Luke Longley was. But Bill Whittington, you could depend on he was going to play to his role and play to his potential. He wasn't going to disappear. You know what I'm saying? Like, for example, if he's averaging 6 points a game, he's going to get that 6 points a game. He's not going to be averaging, like, say, 12 points a game and get 2. That's what Luke Longley would do. That's all that I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. You got guys that you have expectations for. Everybody's got their minutes, and you expect them to get a certain amount of production. Like, as much as I love Horace Grant, I love this dude. Horace Grant was dope or whatever. But Horace Grant had a big problem with disappearing in big games. The dude would disappear. When I mean disappear, he would have 2 points at the end of the game. How do you go through a whole entire game playing somewhere around 35 minutes and you only get 2 points in a playoff game? So you have to understand, like, the thing about Dennis is that he was crazy and did shit off the court, but he always brought more on the court. That's what you need to get to. And there was plenty of guys on the Bulls team that were specialists. They were awesome and whatnot. They filled their role. There's plenty of dudes, man, that didn't.
So on moves, would you say the Tony Kukoc move was a good one?
Yes.
That's all Jerry Krause.
Yes.
Like, that's what I keep saying. Like, he put people in those roles and everything. You're talking about Bill Whittington with all the other players. Like, there were a lot of moves that he made, whether it was right or wrong at the end, during that time.
Okay. First of all, let me tell you this. Tony Kukoc was drafted and brought to the Chicago Bulls to be Dirk Nowitzki. He wasn't brought here to be the sixth man. He was brought here to lead the franchise. Now, did he fit into his role in terms of a championship, formula? Yes. But when they broke the Bulls up, Tony didn't leave. Tony was supposed to be the main focal point.
Yeah. Tony wasn't supposed to be Dirk. He was supposed to be Drazo Petrovic.
Even better. Well, not now, but back then, yes. Back then, yes. Drazen was the best European player up until that particular time, until Dirk breaks through and wins in 2011 and becomes the all-time European player.
But you look at the Tony Kukoc move, and, like, they drafted him, and then it took him 3 years to get over there. Because you got to think about 92 to when did he come over? 94? 95?
He came, 94.
Yeah, so
94.
3 years. So
good stuff.
I'm gonna try to tell you this. Tony Kukoc was awesome. He's almost like Daniel's beard when he paints it completely black.
I know.
And then 2 weeks later, it's gray again.
Exactly. We started on Jordan, and we're going to end this on Bill Whittington. So nice, like that's awesome. Well, guys, we are done with this conversation. So, great 10-part series. Hell, we may have to do this again. There's some pretty good 30 for 30s coming up. So we may have to kind of look into that. Who knows?
Okay.
I like that Bruce Lee one.
Yeah, some really good 30 for 30s coming up. So we'll talk about it. We'll figure it out.
Hey, for real, what happened? It came off? It just washed off?
No, it grew in. Some more grew in.
Oh, more grew in. Okay, you were pretty excited about dyeing it black.
Yeah, it was black for a while until more started growing in. So it'll be black by next week, so it'll be good. Well, guys.
That's our age bracket. Don't worry about it.
Exactly. Well, guys, in this video, so before we end it, like we did last time, of course, Mr. Jason Verpel, go ahead and give out the social media so we get out of here.
Jason Verpil, that's VERPIL at Instagram.com.
Nice. And Chris Sale, you're good. So, okay, nothing to worry about. Anthony, go ahead and give it out.
Must be the GOAT.
Awesome, of course.
Instagram, Twitter, must be the GOAT.
Nice. Of course, here at the Mark Show. So, guys, if you like this video, give us a thumbs up if you see on the screen right now. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with the people. And where's my baby Zoe? We'll see you next time, and we are out on this 10-part series. Woo. Great TV.
What time is it?
Bedtime. Woo.
Okay.
We'll see you next time. Peace.